Welcome back to your Habiwebinar session in Language Labs. My name is Suri Gutiérrez, and today we will be talking about how economic trends play a crucial role in shaping the global business landscape. Understanding these trends is essential for businesses and financial institutions to adapt and thrive in today's dynamic environment. This webinar explores current economic trends and their impact on businesses and banking, providing insights into key concepts, historical context, real world examples, and future predictions. Hmm. Let's try and talk a little bit about the background. Economic trends have been a subject of study for centuries, with early economists like Adam Smith and David Ricardo laying the groundwork for modern economic theory. Over the time, the study of economic trends has evolved, influenced by factors such as technological advancements, globalization, and changing consumer behavior. What are some key concepts and definitions? Before diving into specific trends, it is important to understand some key concepts and definitions. Economic trends refer to long term patterns in economic data, such as GDP growth, inflation rates, and employment levels. These trends can be influenced by a variety of factors, including government policies, technological advancements, and global events. Hmm. But what is the importance of economic trends then? Well, I have an answer for you. Understanding the trends can help businesses and policymakers make informed decisions about resource allocation, investment strategies, and risk management. By anticipating economic trends, businesses can position themselves for success in a rapidly changing environment. Talking a little bit about digital transformation. One of the most significant economic trends in recent years is the digital transformation of industries. This trend has been driven by advancements in technologies such as artificial intelligence, big data analytics, and automation. Businesses that have embraced digital transformation have been able to improve efficiency, reduce costs, and enhance the customer experience. We're going to check some examples in a moment. So, sustainability and corporate social responsibility is also part of these economic trends because it is one of the most crucial ones. Speaking about the growing focus on sustainability and corporate social responsibility, which is also used as CSR, consumers are increasingly conscious of environmental and social issues, leading businesses to adopt sustainable practices and ethical business strategies. Companies that prioritize sustainability not only benefit the planet but also enhance the reputation and appeal to environmentally conscious consumers. One of the best examples of this is this project that is called the Ouro Verde. This Ouro Verde project was established by Michelin. You know, Michelin is one of the oldest tire manufacturers in the world, and they have a number of projects around the world connected to their CSR program. Remembering that CSR, it is the corporate social responsibility. They've got a lot of CSR programs. As Michelin is involved in what is considered an environmentally damaging industry, the tire making. Michelin has developed an approach called performance and responsibility. You know, this concept allows the company to demonstrate that it is actively taking measures to reduce the industry negative impact on the environment. A small rubber project in northeastern Brazil, set up by Michelin, has become a flagship for the French tire giant's corporate social responsibility program, with 5 rubber trees needed to produce only one truck tire. Michelin is an obvious target for those who claim that big businesses have a track record in using up natural resources too intensively, or in other words, exploiting the resources of the world. Although the company can't change the number of trees needed in the manufacturing process, it has initiated a successful project to offset the effects of its activities. This Ouro Verde, or Green Gold project in Bahia State, is a marvelous human adventure. The late Edward Michelin said at its inauguration, having owned a 9,000-hectare site there for 20 years. The French firm looked at closing the loss-making plantation and laying off the workers. Instead, it took advantage of the local knowledge base and passed ownership to 12 local Michelin managers, who set up a cooperative with the backing of loans underwritten by the parent's company. This was a critical success factor. Instead of laying off workers, 200 have been hired over the past 2 years. Michelin has a positive track record in terms of corporate accountability and working with local communities. Lionel Varre, the plantation director at Michelin, says that the initiative stands as an example of sustainable development in a poor region. The last 2 years have seen a burst of activity. The cooperative has planted cocoa next to the rubber trees to diversify its output, recycled some of its revenue into providing facilities for its employees, and has replanted parts of the depleted Atlantic rainforest in eastern Brazil, which contains 171 of Brazil's 202 endangered species. Okay, knowing that, I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions in regards with the Ouro Verde project. First things first, what is the Ouro Verde project about? Question number 2. What is the translation for Ouro Verde? Why did the Michelin decided to create this kind of project? Final question. What has been the result of this CSR project? Excellent work with your answers. Companies that are actually involved in CSR projects, they have more possibilities to continue generating a loyal base of clients and obviously continue developing and existing in this competitive business market. So let's talk a little bit about this globalization and trade. You know, part of these economic trends, globalization has also had a significant impact on economic trends. The increasing interconnectedness of the global economy has led to greater trade flows, cross-border investments, and cultural exchanges. However, globalization has also led to challenges such as income inequality, cultural homogenization, and environmental degradation. One of the best examples is China. China is set to become the world's largest automobile exporter for the first time in at least in the past year. In the first quarter of 2023, China surpassed traditional car making giants like Japan and Germany for the first time. Chinese manufacturers exported more than 1.6 million vehicles in the first quarter of 2023. In doing so, they overtook Japan's number of 1.5 million. China's car industry has made great strides in the past few years. Throughout the 2010s, it managed to produce around a million cars a year. That doubled 2 million in 2021 and then tripled to 3 million a year later. China is forecast to more than a quadruple production numbers from just 4 years ago to becomes the world's largest auto exporter. China is becoming the world's largest manufacturer of electric vehicles, which are also called EVs. Elon Musk's Tesla has a giant gigafactory in China. It has a capacity of 1.25 million vehicles a year, but is yet to reach maximum output. The plant exports a large volume of Tesla cars to Canada, Europe, and Japan. However, Tesla is about to lose its crown as the world's largest EV maker to a Chinese company called BYD. Last month, BYD launched a compact EV called Seagull with a starting price of $11,000. The top three countries that China exports cars to are Russia, the United States, and Mexico. Exports to Russia have been boosted by Western countries imposing trade sanctions on Moscow. You know what? Because of the belly conflict that it's currently on developing. Using the information I just shared with you about China becoming one of the largest automobile exporters in the world, I'm gonna be asking you a couple of questions, and I would like you to select true and false, depending on the information I'm sharing with you. Okay? I'm gonna be setting it to number one, number two, etc. So here we go. Number one, China is set to be the world's leading car exporters again. Is that true or false? Okay, question number two. China exported more than 1 million more cars than Japan in 2023. Is that true or false? Question number three. China quadrupled its car exports in 2023 from a year earlier. Is that true or false? Number four, China's car exports will be 4 times bigger in 2023 than in 2019. Is that true or false? Number five, Tesla said it would build its first gigafactory in China. Is that true or false? Number six, Tesla will soon be overtaken as the world's leading EV manufacturer. Is that true or false? Number seven, a Chinese company has priced its electrical car at $11,000. Number eight, China's car exports to Russia went up because of trade sanctions. Is that true or false? Remember that you will have your correct answers displayed on the screen anytime you answer either true or false. Thank you very much. Let's continue on to the next point.
Take Amazon, for example. Amazon is a prime example of a company that has successfully embraced digital transformation. Starting as an online bookstore, Amazon has expanded into a global e-commerce giant, offering a wide range of products and services. The company's use of artificial intelligence and data analytics has enabled it to personalize the customer experience and optimize its operations. HSBC is another great example. HSBC is a bank that has embraced fintech innovation to enhance its services. The bank has invested in digital technologies to improve its customer experience and streamline its operations. HSBC use of mobile banking, peer-to-peer lending, and digital payments has enabled it to stay competitive in a rapidly evolving financial landscape.
Let's try and talk about one of the most interesting situations that has happened in the recent years, at least in the last decade, right? Patagonia presented an ad which said, "Don't buy this jacket." Those were the words, right? They presented this on Black Friday 2011. Patagonia ran a full page ad in the New York Times with a strong call to action. Don't buy their stuff. Through this unabashed anti-consumerist sentiment, the advertisement revealed a recent trend within the outdoor apparel industry of cultivating a more environmentally friendly and morally grounded image. A trend which Patagonia, an apparel company born in the mountains in the 1970s, seems to be spearheading. However, the environmentalist message of Patagonia and its outdoor apparel can reveal a paradox intrinsic to ecologically conscious corporations. More product sales mean more growth for the company, But increasing sales also means an increase in physical waste and emissions from creating packaging and shipping products. Essentially, the outdoor industry's success means a decline in the very nature that its customers seek to experience and that companies claim to protect. So, by trying to send this message, the company was not actually encouraging their customers not to buy their product. They were only emphasizing the environmental cost of their products, promoting conscious consumption, and thus generating this consciousness on their clients. So the company highlighted the carbon footprint of their R2 jacket production process to discourage unnecessary purchases. That was the actual objective of Patagonia in that situation. As you may see, they were actually getting on board the trend train of the CSR, the corporate social responsibility train, to try and be part of something and generate empathy and consciousness on their own clients. This obviously worked marvelously, and they became even more famous and get even more clientele. Even so, some people think this was a hypocrite move. They still got their objective, which was getting on board the CSR train, presenting an advertising campaign for everybody to to look at it, and they did it. They were able to adapt to the situation. Now, let's try and talk a little bit on globalization and political trends. Political trends such as increasing nationalism and protectionism are also likely to impact economic trends. You know, these trends could lead to changes in trade policies and tariffs affecting businesses that operate across borders. To sum it up, remember that these economic trends are only created so that companies or so that economies in big countries or small countries can predict what's going to happen next and adapt to the next move. Just of the previous examples that we made, right? Enhancing the technology by the Bank of HSBC, adapting to this CSR policies that people or clients or even countries or governments are making. It is also important for certain companies that affect directly or exploit the resources of the planet. One thing that is important to mention is this book written by the Dr. Nulia Rubini Muriel, who is in charge of presenting a very interesting book called The Mega Threats. Mega threats is what he calls that monetary and financial risks, and some of the risks are old, but some of these real risks are new. For example, we have now the return of inflation, the return of negative supply shocks, and the risk of speculation, the buildup of private and public debt that may lead to significant debt crisis, but will also live in a world in which there is other types of threats that are connected to the economic, monetary, and financial. They grow geopolitical threats given the division in the world. There are environmental threats coming from global climate change. There are health threats given the recurrence of severe global pandemics. There are also threats coming from technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotic automation, and because all of this technological innovation may increase the economic pie, they also lead to potentially long-term permanent technological unemployment. And they may also lead to a rise in income and while inequality. We also have a backlash against globalization and hyper-globalization. There is a return to protectionism, to fragmentation and balkanization of the global economy. And global supply chains talk about secure trade rather than free trade talk. About the restoring of manufacturing rather than offshoring, French ordering rather than offshoring, and also political challenges, there is a backlash against a liberal democracy. And there are extremists, authoritarian populist regimes of the extreme right and the extreme left. that are coming to power both in advanced economies and in emerging markets. So we live in a world in which there are threats that are also political, geopolitical, technological, environmental, health, trade related. In addition to economic, and they are all interrogative to each other, it's a bit like a 10 by 10 matrix now. And if we want to focus for now on some of the short-term economic outlook that is connected with some of these threats, we would notice that the conventional wisdom of for example, the street policy markets, which have been proven wrong somehow in the last year and a half, as the collector in last year, there was a debate on whether the rise in inflation in advanced economies were part of the emerging markets. But this was a temporary and a transitory, or more persistent and more permanent. The consensus view by among central bankers and Southside research was it was temporary and transitory, given by base effects and temporary supply shocks. The reality turned out to be different. The inflation went towards double digits of in most advanced economies, and they're still very high. That was another way in which the conventional wisdom was incorrect. People stressed that inflation was driven mostly by bad policies, excessively loose monetary, fiscal, and credit easing, and policies during the COVID crisis that led to excessive inflation. Over time, that was true. But certainly, the monetary, fiscal, and credit policy was part of the story. But the contribution, Dr. Muriel, and in one of the debates that he had in the past years, they debate that this was consequence to bad policies, but it was also on quote of bad luck. A series of negative aggregate supply shocks that reduced economic growth, increased cost of production, and there were stagflationally. The three most important were the initial impact of COVID on the production of goods and services, on the supply of labor, and on disrupting global supply chains. And how does all of this that I'm telling you reflects in a real life scenario? Well, Japan was in the past the third most powerful economy in the world. It was affected somehow by these economic trends. So let's observe a video about what's going on in Japan. And I'll talk to you again in a moment.
We begin this hour with some developing economic news. Japan has lost its place as the world's third largest economy to Germany. Japan's nominal gross domestic product for 2023 was 591.5 trillion yen, or some $4.2 trillion. That's based on last year's average exchange rate. Germany's preliminary GDP surpassed Japan's to stand at nearly $4.5 trillion. Japan's economy became the second largest in the world in 1968 by outgrowing what was then West Germany. But China surged past in 2010, leaving Japan third until now. The International Monetary Fund forecasts Japan will be surpassed by India in just 2 years and fall to fifth in the world by 2026. For more on this, we have in the studio NHK's senior economic commentator Sakurai Reiko. So Reiko, how did Japan slip to number 4, falling behind Germany in terms of the size of their economies?
Well, there are both temporary and structural factors. A weaker yen against the dollar and strong inflation in Germany are the direct causes. Another downside factor was near-zero growth in global trade for 2023. That was a blow for a major exporter like Japan.
What about the structural trends?
Well, there are a couple factors which have contributed to Japan's decline in global competition over the years. One is the shrinking population, but that alone doesn't explain the situation. because Germany's population is only 2/3 of Japan's. Then there are low wages. There has been a stark difference in how Japanese employers have been paying their people over the past 3 decades compared to trends overseas. During that period, Japan's nominal wages were virtually unchanged, while advanced countries, including Germany, saw them more than double. The trend has dampened personal consumption in Japan, thus spurring a deflationary spiral that marks the so-called lost decades. Japan's companies have been investing overseas in search of bigger markets, but that hollowed out industries back home, leading to a weaker domestic economy. In other words, Japan has failed to invest enough in itself and its own people.
But Reiko, does it matter if Japan ranks fourth in the global economy, given that its economy is still quite large?
Well, smaller economic growth often leads to a weaker currency. For Japanese consumers, a weaker yen means they need to pay higher prices for imports. A possible decline in Japan's influence in the world is another concern. The country has used its economic power to gain influence within the international community. At the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, the bigger the GDP, the bigger the voice of the member country. Japan could also risk human capital flight if its economy further weakens and may need to take action to prevent an outflow of talented people.
So what should Japan do to regain its economic strength?
Well, there are 3 challenges to overcome. One is to invest more in people, meaning raising wages. Japanese companies are finally willing to hike pay in the face of a serious labor shortage. Many company managers used to suppress wage growth to cut expenses. That changed last year when they finally offered the biggest hikes in 30 years. The question is whether they can continue the trend, creating a virtuous cycle of higher pay and bigger growth. Another challenge is building a resilient supply chain in a time of heightened geopolitical tension. Strengthening domestic production and securing enough raw materials from reliable sources, including Australia and Canada, would be key for achieving stable and sustainable economic growth. Lastly, working closer with ASEAN countries and other emerging economies of the Global South will become more important. Germany has been able to grow over the years due to its easy access to the entire EU market. Japan needs to create win-win relationships, especially with Asia, during an era marked by a volatile and unstable global economy.
Thanks for your insights, Reiko.
As we may have noticed, big economies such as Japan's can be affected also by other conflicts or by these economic trends. So, giving us or taking more into account what happened when Japan used to be the 3rd largest economy, now it's placed at 4th. That's why I have a questionnaire here for you. Question number 1. What factor contributed to Japan losing its place as the world's 3rd largest economy? Okay, number 2. Which of the following is not mentioned as a factor contributing to Japan's economic decline? Number 3. How have Japanese companies' investment strategies affected the domestic economy? Today, we learned that Japan's economic position in the global economy was affected by other factors that contributed to its decline. The challenges it faced and it's facing, and how they can regain strength and influence. So let's try and check the main 4 points of this video. Number 1, past economic standing. Japan, once the world's 3rd largest economy, has lost the position to Germany. This shift was influenced by a weaker yen against the dollar and strong inflation in Germany. Number 2, structural trends. Factors like a shrinking population, low wages, and stagnant personal consumption have further hindered Japan's economic growth. The number 3 is that Japanese companies investing more overseas than domestically have weakened the domestic economy. And in the number 4, the current challenges. Smaller economic growth could lead to a weaker currency for Japanese consumers, affecting imports and potentially reducing Japan's global influence. In conclusion, Japan faces significant challenges in regaining its economic strength. Addressing structural issues and balancing overseas investments with domestic growth are crucial steps in positioning Japan for future economic success. In the context of economic trends, the content of the video about Japan's economic position provides valuable insights into specific trends affecting a major global economy. Understanding Japan's economic challenges and factors contributing to its decline can offer broader insight into larger economic trends, such as global economic shifts. The video highlights how Japan's loss of economic standing to Germany reflects broader shifts in the global economy, where countries experience fluctuations in economic strength due to various factors like currency valuations and inflation rates. The second one is demographic trends. Japan's shrinking population is a key trend with implications beyond its borders. Other countries facing similar demographic challenges can look to Japan as a case study for potential economic impacts and policy responses. The number 3 is investment patterns. The video's discussion on Japanese companies investing more overseas than domestically reflects a trend seen in other economies. Understanding these investment patterns can provide insight into global trade dynamic and economic independencies. On the number 4, we have the impact on global trade, Japan's economic challenges and the potential implications for its currency and imports can have ripple effects on global trade patterns and the broader economic landscape. Looking ahead, economic trends are likely to continue evolving as technology advances and consumer preferences change. The digital transformation of industries is expected to accelerate, with artificial intelligence and automation playing an increasingly important role in business operations. Sustainability and corporate social responsibility are also expected to remain key priorities for businesses as environmental issues become more pressing. Studying economic trends is important for several reasons. First, it can help businesses anticipate changes in the market and adjust their strategies accordingly. For example, if a business sees that consumer spending is declining, they may choose to reduce production or cut prices to stimulate demand. Similarly, policymakers can use economic trend data to formulate effective economic policies and respond to economic challenges. Second, understanding economic trends can help individuals make informed decisions about their finances. For example, if someone sees that inflation is rising, they may choose to invest in assets that can help preserve the value of their money, such as stocks or real estate. Conversely, if they see that unemployment is high, they may choose to save more money to reduce their spending to prepare for potential economic downturns. In conclusion, understanding current economic trends is essential for businesses and financial institutions to thrive in today's dynamic environment. By staying informed about these trends and adopting innovative strategies, businesses can position themselves for success in the future. Through case studies and analysis, we have seen how companies like Amazon, Patagonia, and HSBC have embraced economic trends to drive growth and innovation. As we look to the future, it is clear that businesses that adapt these trends will be best positioned to succeed in the global marketplace. And the ones that don't, they are going to be facing a crisis just like Japan's economy. Thank you very much for attending to this Habiwebinar session. I was your host, Suri Gutiérrez, and I hope to see you in a future Habiwebinar. Remember to complete your questionnaire after this Habiwebinar has finished. Thank you so much.